chapter 27, verses 52 and 53. It says, and the graves were opened. Grave. You know, cemetery, in the cemetery, graveyard. The graves were opened. After the alleged resurrection of Jesus, the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep and were dead and buried were raised. And coming out of the graves after his resurrection, they went into the holy city of Jerusalem and appeared to many. People came out of the graves and they marched down the streets of Jerusalem. People in their coffins or napkins or all worn out, only skeletons. They came out of the graves and they walked the streets of Jerusalem. And what happened? Finished, that's all. Finished, full stop. Look, when people come out of the graves and walk the streets of Jerusalem, surely people saw. And that's news. That will become world news. You know that? If people from the graves come out in Birmingham, I tell you, it'll be world news. Walking the streets of Birmingham in the napkins. It'll be news. But out of the 27 books of the New Testament, only Matthew records it. Nobody else saw it. Nobody saw it. Nobody heard about it. Look, once you come out of your grave, would you like to go back? Huh? What happened to them? Where did they go? Were they transformed? Did they were taken up to heaven? What happened? Nothing, not one word. Surely, if you came out of your grave after your death, you'd like to go and meet your wife again? No? Second time? Have a second inning? No. So, stories are half told, and the night falls before we can tell where victory lay. Where is there anything in the religious literature of man to compare with this? Agree, there isn't. Agree. But does that prove it's the word of God? No. Stories are half told. I'm reading to you now from the book of Judges, a book in the Bible. After him, Judges chapter 3 verse 31. After him was Shamgar, the son of Anat, who killed 600 men of the Philistines. One man, he killed 600 of the Palestinians. One man. With an ox goad. And he also delivered Israel. Now this goad, I don't know how many of you know what is a goad. You see, the first time I read about this as a young man, I read it in the book of Acts, A-C-T-S, Acts, chapter 9, verses 4 and 5, where it says that Paul, while he was on his way to Damascus, he saw a vision of Jesus. Jesus appears to him and he says, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? Why are you harassing me? What are you persecuting me for? Why kickest thyself against the pricks? And I was shocked. So what kind of a book is this? Using such filthy, dirty language. So I went out on my search as a youngster asking the priest, what is this? And the priests were helpless. They were helpless. They can't explain to me what is Jesus talking about, kicking against I won't repeat it. Now, in the Bible that Brother Sorrosh, he presented to me at the Royal Albert Hall, this beautiful Bible here, this is the 5th major revision. This Bible is the 5th major revision. Brother Sorrosh nods his head, it's true. 5th major revision. I didn't know. You see, I thought the King James Version, or in England they call it the Authorized Version, was the one of 1611. That it has been already through 5 major revisions. And they still call it King James. That's an anomaly. You see, in the time of King James, 1611, this Bible was brought together. Then they found there's something not altogether right, so they made a major change. Major. You understand English? Major, minor. Minor is small, major is big. It's not fiddly little things. Major. You see, this is like your great-great-great-grandfather. He made his last will and testament. And your great-great-grandfather, he made a major change in that will. And your great-grandfather made another major change in that will. And your grandfather made another major change in that will. And your father made another major change in that will. And you made another major change in that will. And you're still insisting that this is the original last will and testament of your great-great-great-grandfather. Amazing use of language. Imagine the language that they're using. 5 major changes, revisions, and they still say it is the King James Version. So in this major revision, they changed the word, that offensive word, to goad, goad. Go and ask the Americans, what is a goad? When you go out, when you meet the Englishman, ask him, what is a goad? And believe me, he won't be able to explain to you, what is a goad? So, yes, I show you this. Sit down, sir. Thank you very much, my dear brothers and sisters. You see, to make it easy for my brothers and sisters who never heard the original word, they never heard the word goad, that this guy Shamgar, he used an ox goad. So I brought it for you. You see, another word for this is a cattle prodder. They prod cattle to move. Ox goad, cattle prodder, spiked stick. There's a little nail here, spiked stick for prodding. You know, with this stick, this Jewish lad, Shamgar, he killed 600 Palestinians with this. You know, you can't destroy 600 snowmen with this. You know that? This thing will break 600. It's a miracle, yes. This is the miracle. It's a miracle. We must accept that, you see, this is programming people. If one Jewish boy can kill 600 Palestinians, what were the Palestinians doing? Look, I said the fools, they couldn't run. They couldn't run for their life. What were they waiting? Where? And where did the fellow strike them with this to kill 600? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have with us a very learned brother here on the stage. He is a psychiatrist, a man who studies psychology. He will be able to tell you, when you make people to read stories of this nature, what a certain Jewish boy did to your people, 600 of you with this stick, your psychology, your mentality, what happens to it. I'll demonstrate to you what it really happens. That's not the end. Then they tell us, incredulous fairy tales, the book. It says here, another Jewish young man by the name of Samson. You heard about Samson and Delilah. You know the story that Cecil DeMille made famous, Samson and Delilah, David and Bathsheba. You know the stories, the films. This fellow Samson, I'm reading now this from the book of Judges, chapter 15, verses 15 and 16. He found a fresh jawbone of a donkey jawbone he found, fresh. He reached out his hand and took it and killed 1,000 Palestinians with the jawbone of a donkey. This is far more, because you see, our brother happens to be a Palestinian, he ought to know. that this is now programming taking place. Look, beautiful. One Jewish boy with the jawbone of a donkey, he kills 1,000 Palestinians. I want to know what the Palestinians were doing. You know what's 1,000? 1,000 people you kill with the jawbone of a donkey, and what they're doing. I said, look, if these 1,000 people, they spat on him, the guy would have suffocated. You can't even spit. You can't even run. Then he says it's a miracle. Oh, the stick is a miracle and the jawbone of the donkey is a miracle. You know, we should go and tell the Israelis, they're wasting their time with those American cluster bombs. You know, in Beirut, they tried to eliminate the Palestinians for good, the final solution. The final solution with American women were dead and buried, were raised. And coming out of the graves, after his resurrection, they went into the holy city of Jerusalem and appeared to many. People came out of the graves and they marched down the streets of Jerusalem. People in their coffins or napkins, all worn out, only skeletons. They came out, and that's news. That will become world news. You know that? If people from the graves come out in Birmingham, I tell you, it'll be world news. Walking the streets of Birmingham in the napkins. It'll be news. But out of the 27 books of the New Testament, only Matthew records it. Nobody else saw it. Nobody. Chapter 27, verses 52 and 53. It says, and the graves were opened. Graves. You know, cemetery, in the cemetery, graveyard. The graves were opened. After the alleged resurrection of Jesus, the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep saw it. Nobody heard about it. Look, once you come out of your grave, would you like to go back? Huh? What happened to them? Where did they go? Were they transformed? They were taken out of the graves and they walked the streets of Jerusalem. And what happened? Finished, that's all. Finished, full stop. Look, when people come out of the graves and walk the streets of Jerusalem, surely people saw